planning to address. Sidewalks is the big one that's on that list. I think we can all agree sidewalks to this facility aren't warranted. There's no building proposed. We don't anticipate people walking to this facility. We would prefer not to have to install sidewalks either on-site or off-site for this project. I don't think it's appropriate, and the off-site sidewalk is certainly more than 500 feet away from this facility. As I discussed, lighting will not impact the abutting lots. This project is subject to a stormwater PBR with the Maine DEP. We will certainly get that permit prior to construction. And there were some minor stormwater comments that needed to be addressed. We'll be sure to address those before the board signs the final plans. The applicant's hopeful to get started on this project as soon as possible. Hopeful the board will be willing to consider us for an approval this evening. Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it back to you and happy to answer any questions you have, unless, Todd, you had anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Members
Yes.
of the board, any questions for Mr. Morrow or Mr. Poirier?
Mr. Chairman, is this not a public hearing?
It is.
All right. Do you want to open to the floor before we take questions, or?
Hear people's comments first.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. I apologize. If there is anyone that would like to speak in favor of this project, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. I see no one rising. Is there anyone here that would speak against this project? Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Again, I see no one rising. And last but not least, if there's anyone like to speak about the project, neither in favor or opposed, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. I see no one rising. I will close the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Okay, just a couple questions, Andy, and it's all just one theme. What will be stored here? Are there any environmental concerns that would impact that stormwater permit?
So basically what we're looking to do is, we're a construction company. The storage is not as much materials as it is simply equipment. We own 6 asphalt pavers, a dozen rollers, 15 or 20 support vehicles and trailers. We're looking to just store some of our overflow equipment, mostly in the wintertime, as we run out of space. So trench boxes, barrels, cones, not real material in stockpiles. You know, we may have a load or two of gravel that sits in a corner until we can use it next week, but it's mostly just an equipment storage for overflow.
Any concerns on oil or fuel storage that could run off and impact the ground?
There should not be. I mean, it's all, you know, late modern equipment, same as what we're storing on our New Portland Road location. At this point, we're just tight on space. We do not do paving and construction in the wintertime, so we have, again, this paving fleet that is just sitting, rotates in and out for winter overhaul and such. There'd be minimal entrances and exits onto the property. The winter time, it may not even be plowed, with the exception of doing some overhaul to pick up a piece of equipment to bring back to the shop.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
No other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Mr. Delaney, please.
Can you speak a little more to the lighting and how the lighting is not going to impact any surrounding, especially the residential? I know it's further away, but.
Yeah, so this parcel is surrounded by industrial zoned lots. There is a residential home that's located to the south of this parcel, so we certainly tried to minimize the lighting. We tried to, we've got down shielded lights that are pointing down to the ground and making sure that they're just lighting the laydown area and not sending light onto the abutting parcels. We've provided a photometric plans that shows the foot candles for all of the lights, showing that it does not impact any abutting lots. There's nothing above 0 for a foot candle on the abutting lots.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Delaney? Yes, Mr. Frank.
Thank you. With, again, respect to the lighting, will you have
some sort of low-level security lighting, even when you're not working in the area?
Are they going to be on a,
Yeah, the intent was just have it on a daylight timer, similar to what we do in our yard, just to prevent someone from walking in the dark. But again, the site is very heavily wooded. We don't anticipate anyone could access the site from three sides. Would be gated up front, but more of a security lighting. We'll, anticipate a few security cameras with motion sensors should someone come in off hours. But we're not lighting up Fenway Park. It's just more of a, just to have the cameras pick something up and, maybe deter people from coming into the site.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Anyone else? I have a few comments as I read through our 16-page report here. On page 5 of 16, the very, very bottom, general completeness, documents reviewed by Wright Pierce, there was a concern perhaps that the wetland report is more than 5 years old, and it was recommended that an updated delineation be completed. I'm looking to Planning Department. Are we concerned about that?
I don't know what the life expectancy of a delineation report to be. Maybe Andy Moore can shed light if it's needed. What you typically see in the standard for how long a wetland delineation is, I guess, valid.
yeah, that delineation was done on July 23rd of 2021, so it's not 5 years old. But wetlands, especially of this kind, typically aren't changing over time. So I wouldn't anticipate a change in the wetlands, but
Yeah, I don't take exception to it. I was looking
Yeah.
at the quick math saying,
Yeah.
An engineer was subtracting 25 from 21, come up with more than 5, so. And it was only recommendation. Okay, thank you on that.
you're welcome.
On page 6 of 16, under stormwater management, they're questioning what the 2-inch orifice is.
Yes.
We have that squared away?
Yes, they wanted me to add that to the plan and make it more clear on the plans. I'm happy to do that.
Sure thing. I appreciate that. Segue, page 12 of 16, please, under the findings. Letter N, waste disposal. The proposed development will provide for adequate disposal of solid wastes and hazardous wastes. Is adequate strong enough language? Is there a standard that defines what adequate is?
That's the language in the actual land use code. So that is the actual language as a performance standard. So
Okay, if that's what our standard is?
yeah.
You get a buy on that one, thank you. That's all I have as far as nitpicking through this for individual items. Mr. Frank, please.
On page 11, the very last line about the finding, you mentioned a water supply, and I really think you're talking about a sewage disposal rather than a water supply, unless I'm misconstruing it here.
No, I think that's accurate.
Okay, thank you.
There was a suggestion, perhaps requesting a waiver, but I don't see a waiver in this document.
Correct. We did not submit a sidewalk waiver from the board to the board as part of our application. It was over 500 feet away. We didn't think a waiver was required, but certainly to have that discussion with the board.
I at least would like to have it noted. Please, Mr. Poria.
Yeah, I pulled up the ordinance. I don't foresee a waiver being needed either. Really, a waiver is really regarding buildings and structures and then having pedestrians go in and out of structures. In this case, it's just a gravel storage lot, so there's no need to waive anything because the ordinance is pretty clear that it's talking about structures, and in this case, that's not. being identified.
You don't, please, Colonel.
Mr. Chair, we do have a condition of approval for that pedestrian facilities, pedestrian sidewalk would be required if a building was built on site.
In future site, I see that,
Number
yes,
19.
yes, thank you. We don't feel it's necessary to say that it was discussed and consensus is,
Well, we can update the findings that says pedestrian circulation through the gravel storage yard is adequate to meet the requirement.
planning board, are we comfortable with that language?
Yes.
Something similar?
Yeah.
For you. Is there anything else? Anyone else?
Good to go.
The motion on page 16, please. Would someone? Pauls, please.
Move to grant Glidden Properties LLC request for site plan approval for a laydown yard and associated infrastructure located on map 12, lot 12-3, the industrial zoning district based on findings of fact and conditions of approval as written by the town planner.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh, is there a second, please? Thank you, Mr. Frank. Any other discussion, any other questions? Now's our chance. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving along, item 2. Item 2 is also a public hearing, site plan review, Seamus Paving and Seal Coating, commercial development. A request for review of a plan of a commercial building, outdoor storage area, and associated infrastructure on an approximately 9.5 acre parcel adjacent to the recently developed retail location on Ossipee Trail. Zone roadside commercial, RC, map 76, lot 20. The applicant is represented by Andy Morrow. Sir?
Andy Seamus.
Okay, thank you. Is there someone from planning that would like to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this application was last before you at the September 8th planning board meeting where the applicant did a sketch plan with the planning board. Staff has done a review of the proposal. There is one waiver being requested. They are asking for a reduction from parking from 28 to 19. What I will say is the standard we used was a commercial standard, and this use is kind of in between a commercial standard and an industrial standard. So a commercial standard is 1 space per 250, and industrial is 1 space per 1,000. They land in the middle, which seems to support the waiver request they're requesting this evening. We have done a review of the proposal. And what I will say for the board is one of the items was regarding landscaping. What they're proposing, instead of a landscaping plan, is to keep a lot of the existing trees to the front of that parcel to kind of buffer the building and the use from 25. And with that, I'd answer any questions the board has.
Thank you, Mr. Poirier. Any questions for Mr. Poirier? Mr. Seamus, I guess.
Okay. Andy Seamus, owner of Seamus Paving and Seal Coating. I'm here with Andy Morrow from BH2M. We're here tonight seeking final approval for the commercial building on Route 25 next to the new Tractor Supply. We've designed the project to meet all the zoning and building and fire code requirements. We're keeping the disturbed land under an acre to so we're not required for the DEP approval on site review. And to my knowledge, we don't have any abutter concerns or complaints regarding the project. All impact studies have been completed. And we've been working with the department heads to try to make sure that this goes smoothly so we can get a foundation in ground prior to heavy frost and cold winter setting in. My experience with the town's been phenomenal, super responsive, very encouraging, which is great for a small business owner that wants to locate their business in Gorham. It's a lot of support behind that, and it's been awesome. I mentioned in the last meeting that this is a pretty cool project for me. I started my company here in Gorham as a high school student, and I've grown it since that time frame. And now located in Standish, but excited to get back into Gorham, and it's coming full circle, coming back into Gorham. So very, very excited. Really looking for that approval to get things, to keep things on track prior to winter. That's our number one concern tonight. And with that, I'll hand things back over to Andy, who can answer questions probably a lot better than I can.
Thank you.
So we were here not too long ago for the sketch plan for this. You guys probably remember that. The layout hasn't changed significantly since you've seen it. There are some things that have changed a little bit since you guys saw the sketch plan. Andy is proposing a 4,800 square foot shop in the rear of the rear portion of the building, but a 2,100 square foot office in the front of the building. We've worked with Chief Fickett on the sprinkler system. Sprinkler system will not be required as part of this building. As the board knows, the access drive will come off of the existing road, if you will, that serves Tractor Supply. Tom touched on parking. We've proposed 19 parking spaces with 1 ADA space. We've also proposed some outdoor storage behind the building. This zone allows up to 1.25 acres of outdoor storage. We've proposed about 1/4 of an acre of outdoor storage. The building's going to be served by drilled well, subsurface wastewater disposal. Stormwater is all collected with a vegetated ditch and discharged to a vegetated soil filter where it is treated. We did have a staff meeting last week. It went really well. Really the only item that came up was fuel storage. There's a fuel storage facility at the entrance of the site. The concept there is that vehicles either coming or going are able to refuel as needed. We worked with Chief Fickett to make sure we had that designed to meet town and state standards. We will certainly be sure to do that. We are going to work with Andy and Chief Fickett and get work with the State Fire Marshal to get through that process. We will be helping him with that process. Applicant's fine with a conditional approval. I'll certainly add a note to our final plans that would state that all of these state and local requirements will be met as far as fuel storage goes. The applicant did provide a summary after the staff meeting for town review. It's my understanding that Chief Fickett has reviewed that document and signed off on the information that was provided. So I think that item's been put to bed, but happy to discuss that more if the board would like to. This project will require a DEP stormwater PBR, which we'll be certainly getting prior to construction. We did receive the town comments last week. Again, I think they're pretty minor and easily addressed, but I just want to touch on a few of them. It's my understanding the town assessing department has fixed the map and lot number for this parcel. There was kind of some confusion on what that was. It's my understanding that's been addressed. Planning staff has given that to me. I'll be sure that any final plans you guys get have that correct pertinent information on it. Tom hinted at it in his opening that the classification of parking for this site. If we go under the construction use, we're required to have 28 parking spaces. We're proposing 19. It's our opinion that this should be in a light industrial use, which would require 7 parking spaces. We've got 19, but as Tom said, we kind of fall in the middle of that. So happy to handle that however the board sees fit. I think regardless if 28 parking spaces are required on this site, yes, we are striping 19 on the site, but I think we can all agree that we could easily fit 28 parking spots on this site. There's a decent amount of parking and storage area on this site that could accommodate additional parking. Traffic movement permit is not required. We had to look at the Tractor Supply and the amount of traffic that was on its entrance, as well as the amount of traffic anticipated for this parcel, and that does not trigger a traffic movement permit. Water supply costs, staff had asked us to take a look at that. Existing water is over 4 miles away. I don't, I ran the calcs today. It's 3.8 million to extend the public water. So I think we can all agree, similar to what Tractor Supply did, extending public water is not feasible for this project. So the southern portions of this site, everything closer to Route 25 are going to remain in its natural state. It's currently a wooded site. I don't believe you're going to be able to even see this building from Route 25. I suppose if you look down the road, you'll be able to see it, but all the trees that are in the front of this parcel are going to remain, and we'll be screening this building from Main Street, from 25. There are some residential lots to the north, if you will. As you can see on the site plan, we've kept a 30-foot existing wooded buffer in that back section to provide screening to those abutting uses. There was some discussion about a dumpster. Andy does not have a dumpster at his current facility. Doesn't feel like a dumpster is required at this site, so we're not proposing one. Public sewer, similar to public water, is well over 500 feet away and not financially feasible to extend to this project, similar to Tractor Supply. There was some discussion about snow storage. The entire exterior of the parking lot is available for snow storage. I'm happy to, on the final plans, put a note or show some hatching on there of where some potential snow could be located, but we certainly have adequate snow storage. There was some question in, I believe, Wright Pierce's comments about where materials will be stored. We tried to provide, the applicant provided a summary in our application of what's going to be stored on site. That material will all be stored in the building in the shop facility. As Andy said, he's quite anxious to get this project started. Installing a foundation before winter is really a critical step for this project. We are hopeful this evening the board would be willing to consider a conditional approval, but Mr. Chairman, with that, I'm happy to throw it back to you and happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. In light of full disclosure, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the board, to help move the project along, you may have seen this letter that's been included in our packets. Chief Fickett included me in that original email. With no disrespect to anyone else, I think it was just to make me aware of what's the tenor of the project is. Instead of having me make some explanation, I have asked Chief Fickett if he would please come tonight and explain to the public and to the board how this thing came together.
Ken Fickett, the fire chief. I support the project 100% with Andy Seamus. We did run into a little hiccup with the State Fire Marshal's office and with their dilemma of reviewing projects and all that stuff. I met with Andy and we come up with a solution that I support this letter, and I did send it to Mr. Hager, and I inadvertently left the rest of the committee off, but I really wanted this letter to be known that I do support it, and I want this project to move forward and let him pour the cement and everything else, and the end result is I'll get everything I need on this piece of the puzzle for sure, as Andy has guaranteed me that with the State Fire Marshal's approval. It takes anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks to get the Fire Marshal's approval on anything at this point in time. And he's under the gun to pour the cement for everything else but this. So, and I did inadvertently, and I apologize to the rest of the committee, but I really wanted this to be known that I support this 100%.
Any questions for the chief? Chief, thank you for coming out this evening. My personal appreciation for the lives and all the work that you and your department does. Thank you for coming out this evening. Hope everyone's okay with that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to ask if there is anyone here that would like to speak in favor of the project, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. I see no one rising. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is anyone that would like to speak against this project, Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Again, I see no one rising. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's anyone that would like to speak about the project, neither in favor or against, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Ladies and gentlemen, I see no one rising. I will close the public hearing. Members of the board. Colonel, please.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to take the waiver piece off so we can move on to the rest of it. I support granting the waiver for the parking spaces. I understand the use. I don't see any issue or controversy about this at all. So unless anybody.
Agree entirely.
Move on, yeah.
So I'd like to propose a motion.
Please, Colonel.
Move to grant a waiver to Seamus Paving and Seal Coating for the requirement 302-10 to allow reduction of required off-street parking spaces from 28 to 19 for the proposed development at tax map 76, lot 20.
Thank you, Colonel. Is there a second, please?
Dave Walsh, second.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Anyone objection? Any questions, concerns? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Colonel. Moving along, anyone? I'm sorry, Mr. Frank, please.
Thank you. Andy, on, what page am I on? Oh, okay. You talk about building in 2 phases. First, completing the shop and then the office area. It's one structure, right? One building?
Andy Seamus. Yeah, it is one structure. They're separated by a 10-foot gap, and that with a roof that goes across. So that's the separation of them, but they're really on one foundation. So the foundation itself would be poured in one. We would probably start on one side or the other. I'm not sure even why we mentioned that, but it's strange in the sense that the foundation's one structure, the buildings are separated by a 10-foot gap. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else, members?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Walsh, please.
Just more of a conceptual question. The lot, you're going to be building on the back of the lot. Could this lot be subdivided, because you have a fairly attractive lot on the front, right on 25. Could that be subdivided and developed down the road?
The answer is yes. So if they did it within 5 years, it trips subdivision. If they wait 5 years, then it would just be a lot split.
And any development of that would have to come back before this board?
Correct.
Very good.
Members of the board? Mr. Frank?
Just a couple of, I'm frowning slightly. The page 13 to 15. About the tree clearing. And Andy, you said that basically from the highway, from the road, you're not going to be able to see anything. And but it says, difficult to determine how much tree clearing will be done. It appears from sheet 1 that the entire front of the site will be devoid of the natural vegetation. What are you calling the front?
So that document's prepared by planning staff, so,
Yeah, that's
so
true.
they're referring, I believe, to the front from Route 25 being the front of the parcel. So
Okay.
this section of the parcel here
It's
is going to remain in its natural state as a wooded lot.
Yeah, so yeah.
Yep.
Didn't mean to holler at you about that.
No problem. Just wanted to be clear.
And, another thing, again, it's all in the planning findings about again, page 13, it talks about served by an on-site septic and well, and then further on down, it says public water and sewer are proposed. So that's all our document though. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. Silly question, because these sometimes get overlooked.
Yep.
On drawing number 2, sheet number 2,
Yes.
just the tax map is still saying lot 20-2.
Yep. I'll be sure to address that.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's fixed
Yep.
on sheet 1. Thank you. That's all I have. Anyone else? Planning, anyone? We're all good? Colonel, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would just say I'm ready to make a motion, but it would include a condition of approval to address the concerns with the fuel site, which is not currently on here, so that it would meet the conditions necessary.
I believe condition number 3 address that any staff and peer review comments shall be addressed prior to the planning board signing of the plan. I think the fuel storage is Chief Fickett's comment, so they'll need to address that and make sure it meets his requirement.
Number 3 is the save-all sentence. Back on conditions of approval on page 16.
Yep.
I'm certainly going to add a note to the plan too that will say, NFPA 30 standards will be met as part of, the fuel storage requirements. So I'll be sure to spell out what Chief Fickett had kind of stated, what standards need to be met in that note on the plan. But we're happy to have a condition of approval if the board, feels that's necessary.
Thank you. Just this afternoon, it appears Mr. Adams from Barton Thank you, Lojudas, is recommending a change in lighting from the Land Use and Development Code. Would this letter perhaps be included as part of question number 3 or sentence number 3 that this is a condition of approval?
Yes. It's a peer review comment.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please, Colonel.
Yeah, so just to clarify, reading from Chief Fickett's comments, can you put in the conditions of approval, the fuel station will have a state fire marshal's approval and meet NFPA 30 requirements? So I appreciate you saying that number 3 would cover it, but Chief Fickett's own comments say to add it as a condition of approval. So I would like that added as a condition of approval.
I
prior
missed
to
that one,
making the
so
motion.
that's fine.
Thank you.
Since you took the time to write to me.
Yeah, directly.
Thank you, Colonel. Good pickup.
Mr. Chair?
Please, Colonel.
I'd move to grant Seamus LLC request for site plan approval for a 6,960 square foot shop and office building and associated infrastructure located on map 76 lot 20, the roadside commercial zoning district, based on findings of fact and conditions of approval as written by the town planner and amended by the planning board.
Thank you, Colonel. Is there a second?
Mr. Frank will second.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. I'm going to look to planning. Will this have the same teeth to expedite as if we had a consent agenda?
Correct. I mean, as fast as the applicant gets us revised comments, we'll get them, once we can review it and make sure that all the conditions are met, we'll have the board, we'll send an email out to the board to come in to sign the plans.
I'm respectful and curious, but I didn't want this motion perhaps to slow things down. So the burden's going to be on developer?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on me.
Thank you, Colonel. I apologize. Thank you. There was a motion, Colonel, and a second by Mr. Frank. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Please, Mr. Walsh.
I just want to ask if we should possibly look at the agenda for flip-flopping item 3 and 4, because I think item 3 is going to require a little bit of time, and item 4, I believe, is much briefer.
So, yes, to paraphrase what Mr. Walsh is asking, if we can revise the agenda, I suspect item 3, the public hearing, will be perhaps lengthy. And the discussion on item 4 might not be as lengthy. So am I paraphrasing you, Mr. Walsh?
Perfectly.
Trying. Is that a motion, please?
Yes.
Change the order?
Yes, move to change the order of the agendas to move item 4 to become item 3 and item 3 to become item 4.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Is there a second, please? Mr. Delaney, thank you. Are the folks for the discussion for item 4 here? Because sometimes we change an order and people aren't in the audience. We're all set to proceed? All right, so there's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. So we are adjusting. Item 4 is now item 3, and item 3 will become item 4. Item 3 is a discussion. Discussion, subdivision amendment. Ali Omar and Carmen Schneider. A request for review of an amendment to an existing subdivision to create 2 additional lots on 79 Day Road, map 23, lot 7, zoned urban residential expansion. The applicant is represented by Andy Morrill with BH2M. Look to planning to please kick this off.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So this item was last before the board in July. It's a proposal for subdivision amendment. The original subdivision was approved in September of 2024. And what the amendment is for is to create 2 additional lots within the subdivision. There were some outstanding items that were identified during the previous review of the amendment in July. Those items included providing adequate proof of financial capacity that has now been provided. The applicant needed to provide a shared driveway maintenance agreement that has now been provided, reviewed by the town attorney, and deemed satisfactory. And design details for the shared driveway needed to be provided. Those have also been reviewed by the peer review engineer and town engineer and found to be satisfactory as well. Planning did not identify, planning staff peer reviews did not identify any additional items that needed to be provided at this time. With that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Yakuloff. Ms. Morrill, please.
Good evening, Andy Morrill, BH2M. We appreciate you trying to accommodate us on a time point of view, so thank you for that. As Damon said, Damon summarized this very well. We did provide test bit information from Mark Hampton Associates for lots 3A and 3B. You'll see those on the amended plan showing the septic locations, well exclusion zones, typical information that we show for that information. A bunch of minor changes have happened to the plan. You guys can see in my summary there. I don't need to go through all those details, but we did meet with staff, and I think we're in really good shape. There were 2 items discussed. This driveway will need to be a named road for 911 purposes. The applicant will be working with planning staff to get that process started. It's my understanding Cumberland County has assigned new map and lot numbers for these lots. We will be sure to provide those on the final plan that you guys sign for this project. So I just wanted you to be aware that that'll be on there. But with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it back to you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Morrill. This is a discussion. Members of the board, any questions? I haven't served as long as others have, perhaps, but this is as clean as an application. There's no yellow. I mean, so kudos to everyone that's participated to bring this up to a great standard. Anyone, members of the board?
You ready?
Let's rock and roll, sure.
All right.
Motion.
Move to grant subdivision amendment approval for 79 Day Road subdivision located on map 23, lot 7 in urban residential expansion zoning districts based upon findings of fact and conditions of approval as written by the town planner.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Delaney.
Second.
Any questions? No one has any objections? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need to take a 5-minute recess?
Why not?
So I'm looking up to Georgia, and would you please note that we will take a 5-minute recess, and I promise, as best as I can, a 5-minute recess.
Let's do it.
I just texted Fickett, I'm like, can't be true.
Yeah, Carol emailed him as well.
Oh, okay, I'm like,
I thought you were on the.
no, I don't, well, I didn't see it.
Oh, okay, we might have thrown you on after.
Oh, okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a regular meeting of the Gorham Planning Board. It is Monday evening, November 3rd. We just took a brief recess. We are now going to take item 4, which has become item 3. We moved the agenda around. This is a public hearing. Site and subdivision review, Triano Properties LLC, Gorham Fairways South. A request for review of a plan of phases 1 to 5 for a mixed-use development on 170 plus or minus acres of the former Gorham Country Club on McClellan Road, zoned contract zone and South Gorham Crossroads. Map 7, lots 6, 7, and 8. The applicant is represented by Dan Riley, PE, of Sebago Techniques. Would someone from planning like to take this on, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So what's before the board tonight is a proposal for phases 1 through 5 of the development at the former Gorham Country Club. This item was before you for a sketch plan review back in September. There's discussion and with the board and with staff, and the applicants have taken that information and come back with some design work that shows how the project will be built and how it will meet our ordinances. And they're looking to get preliminary approval at this time for phases 1 through 5. The site's part of a contract zone that was reviewed and approved by the council in March 2025. And it's also part of a master site development plan that was approved by the planning board in June of 2025. That master site development plan is for phases 1 through 10. So phases 1 through 5 are primarily on the south side of McClellan Road, but they do include some off-site work as well to extend water and sewer. So it's a very large and complex project. The applicant has provided a great deal of information. It's been reviewed by staff peer review engineers, and there's a number of comments that will be addressed, and I think we can look to the applicants to provide more information about the project and respond to the comments as well as from the board. Some key items to highlight for the board for this evening that you may wish to consider. The board may wish to request a site walk. You've not completed a site walk at this location, and you may wish to do that before winter sets in. So if you choose to do that, we can work to schedule that perhaps for sometime in mid-November, ideally before it snows. Would be good. Hopefully there won't be snow by then. Another item that you may wish to consider this evening are waiver requests. The applicant has requested 5 waivers, and I believe it would be helpful to know whether the board approves of them or not as they look to complete their additional design work. They are, as far as phasing goes, they are looking to focus on these first 5 phases now, but in particular, the first 2 are what they're looking to get to final approval, perhaps within the short-term period. With that, Mr. Chair, happy to turn back over to you and answer any questions that may come up during discussion and public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Yakulov. Mr. Riley.
Thank you very much. Thanks. My name's Dan Riley. I'm an engineer with Sebago Technics, and I'm here on behalf of Triano Properties to discuss with the board and ask for preliminary site and subdivision approval for the Gorham Fairways South project, which, as Damon said, includes the first 5 phases of the Gorham Fairways. With me tonight, Nick Triano from Triano Properties, Sam Triano, and John Weeks with Triano are here to answer any questions from the owner standpoint, and Tanner Goodine, the project engineer from our office, is also here if need be. So to kind of quickly overview, and for the sake of some of the public that may have not been at some of our previous meetings, as Damon outlined and your memo outlines, this was last before the board for sketch plan on September 9th. The plans that you see in your application and that you see on the renderings here are very consistent with the sketch plan approval. Very little revisions have been made in terms of the layout of the project And the application really just represents an advancement of the design to include grading, plan and profile sheets, utility designs for the interior of the site, and just advancing that the design along for preliminary purposes. The project does include 100 acres, roughly, 100 and a half on the south side of McClellan Road, of the portions of the former Gorham Country Club. And our approach, as we've talked about in the past, is that we are seeking preliminary approval for all 5 phases that are shown in the application. We're submitting our DEP site location of development application permits very soon, here in the beginning of November, for the entire phases 1 through 5 that are before you. And then pending those approvals, we plan to return for final site and subdivision approval for the first 2 phases of the project and address the local permitting requirements for traffic related to those first 2 phases. Since our last meeting in September, as I said, the site law application is getting ready to go in. The notices have been sent for that. We held a public information meeting on the 27th, on Monday the 27th. A few neighbors came to that. Damon was happy to attend that. We're happy to have him at that to hear some of the comments, and we'd be happy to discuss that further. Some other items that are in progress, all of the on-site water supply drawings that you have in your application have been submitted to the Water District. They're in the process of reviewing those. We are also finalizing some of the off-site water supply designs with them. As we noted in the application for the on-site project, the water supply will come from the site on McClellan Road. It will run down to Brackett Road and then head north and connect to the district's facilities in Brackett Road, running past the Newton Road project that you've reviewed in the past. Along with that, the off-site sewer is expected, the force main is expected to follow that same route. Where we are in that process, we've got some route determination for the ultimate destination of that force main. And right now, our preferred option is to take the force main over some central main power property that runs from Brackett Road to Hutchinson Road. And we're preparing some documentations in discussion with CMP to see if that approval could be forthcoming in the time that we'd be looking for. It looks promising right now, but we'll be coming back to you with more information as part of the final application on the finalized route of that force main. If that option is not available, there are options entirely within the right-of-way, including coming down New Portland Road and/or Sear Drive to get to Hutchinson Road. And so we're just looking to try to finalize that route option and then proceed with the final design for the force main and the pump station that would serve the project. And finally, in your memo, we did submit some preliminary information about the trip generation and the traffic thresholds. We've talked, I think, in the past at the sketch plan about when a state review would be triggered. The peer review traffic engineer came back with his recommendation on the areas that we should be looking at. We have obtained traffic counts this summer for both South Street, Brackett Road, and McClellan Drive, and we're proceeding with the traffic study that was recommended that came out through the staff comments that we got in the same ones that you received in your packet. So as we've talked in the past, the proposed project is 515 residential units. The summary you see on the screen in terms of the building program is unchanged since the sketch plan review that we had in September. A total of 515 residential units, including 440 multifamily units, 75 single-family lots, and roughly 60,000 square feet of commercial space in some standalone buildings and mixed-use buildings as part of the project. Included on the plan, identified in the subdivision, the preliminary subdivision plans in your application, the project does propose right now about 51 acres of total open space, and that includes the parcels that are entirely open space. And on the exhibit here, I have a better, cleaner exhibit I'll get to, but that includes all of the open space that's to the south of the single-family residential shown in yellow, and the open space parcel that kind of runs linearly along, following the contours through the site. That total is about 51 acres. About 25 of that, or or 24 of that, excuse me, is on the south side and along the Stroudwater River within the floodplain. So from that standpoint, that would be the open space parcels that you may recall as part of the contract zone. The town would have the option to acquire or be granted those parcels. We expect that there'll be some additional open space that's going to be available for the residents and the public along some of the developed areas, particularly between some of these buildings. Those aren't purely dedicated parcels, but there would be easements and access across there. So we think the actual usable open space will increase from that number, consistent with what we've discussed in the past. The project is being constructed in phases, and just as a reminder, sort of the area shown in yellow here, the first phase would be comprised of the 75 single-family lots that were outlined or identified in the contract zone, and that would include the roads connecting those lots in the area shown in yellow, and including the road connection that's identified on the plans as Road D that runs up through and back to McClellan Road. So on the screen, on the screen over here, the areas shown in yellow are the first phase of construction that'll be done in a number of sequences over time. Phase 2 of the project are 72 condominium units up in the northwest corner of the project. Would be the second phase of the project up here. Phase 3 includes the mixed-use commercial development buildings and some of the standalone commercial buildings, including any renovations to the former golf clubhouse. Phase 3. Phase 4 are apartments along the roadway that would be constructed in the initial phase here, and then phase 5 would include additional apartment units in that area there. So all of that phasing is consistent, again, with what we discussed at sketch plan review in September. This is a copy of one of the subdivision sheets that are in your application, and the gray area and the hatched area at the bottom represent the open space parcels that were identified as part of the contract zone that the city would have the option to acquire as part of the project. The hatched area being area that right now is identified as conservation land, and there's no proposed development in the area except for potentially some trails that I'll talk about in a minute. And the gray areas being open space that's within the subdivision but isn't proposed for development of any type other than things like stormwater management and some utility crossings. So the gray area and the hatched area combined is about 51 acres, with 24 acres of that being the conservation area along the river. And as we talked about at sketch plan, some of that may shift a little bit as we get through the DEP review, finalize stormwater designs, and get to the final detailing. But that, in general, is the open space that would potentially be dedicated to the town if they chose to acquire it and consistent with the contract zone. So a couple, as Damon talked about, there are some waivers that I'll kind of walk through. I think we've talked about these also at sketch plan. The first that was discussed is phasing of the stormwater. The South Gorham Crossroads District, as part of the master plan standards, says that you're required to build all of the stormwater infrastructure for the entire project as part of the first phase. Due to the lay of the land here and with the relatively steep terrain generally draining from McClellan Road towards the Stroudwater River, most of our stormwater facilities are at the lower end of the site and would be constructed as part of the first phase, but there are some additional areas in some of the future later phases of the project that we would want to defer the stormwater construction for those for the time they're constructed. Just due to the terrain, the nature of the development, the parking requirements, and trying to meet the other standards of the Crossroads District, those stormwater facilities are likely to be below grade, below parking lots, and it doesn't make sense to try to construct those ahead of the rest of the construction for those phases. There is a waiver request for the maximum block length. That's a performance standard in the South Gorham Crossroads District. And you may recall, as part of the contract zone, the contract zone explicitly gave the planning board the authority to reduce, there's a double negative here, so let me make sure of that, to allow blocks that may exceed 1,600 square feet is the short way to say it, provided that the board finds that the road design is responsive to the natural terrain enhances open space and/or pedestrian connectivity through the open space. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we roll through it. Finally, there is some waiver requests for the road geometry, specifically the road cross-section is based on the urban collector standard, with the exception that we have an attached sidewalk rather than an esplanade. That's consistent with some other projects that have been approved recently. And then all of the roads in the project are currently, we don't foresee a reason they would be otherwise, are proposed as private ways, not public roads that would be offered for acceptance. But we did include or note some areas where a waiver from the public road standard would be required relative to the minimum curve radius of those roads and some distance between, tangent distance between reverse curves. And I'll go through each one of those in a minute. And the final two, one is we're asking for a waiver of the high intensity soil survey requirement. The soil survey is generally used in Gorham's ordinance as a basis for a net residential calculation that isn't required in the South Gorham Crossroads District. The high intensity soil surveys are generally used for either net residential calculations where they're required or to support septic system designs where they're proposed. And because this project is not proposing any on-site wastewater disposal, it'll be served by public water and sewer. And because there's no net residential requirement in the South Gorham Crossroads District, we are asking for a waiver of that high intensity soil survey. And finally, there is a waiver, as you've discussed on other projects, the applicant is looking to use the in lieu fee option for the provision of off-site sidewalks due to the distance to any connecting sidewalks that exist on the site. So a little bit illustrating that. This graphic that's on the screen here represents what we're talking about with the stormwater waiver. The areas in red, and specifically, I don't know if my finger can see there. I can't see my own finger, but I'm pointing to the areas in red represent the areas that are treated by stormwater in the first two phases of the project. So the darker red areas on the lower portion of the site represent the stormwater facilities here, 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 a stormwater buffer here, and a stormwater management facility here. Those facilities provide treatment to all of the areas that are in red, and that includes the portions of the Phase 1 project that ultimately require treatment. All of the Phase 2 impervious and developed area is treated in those areas. The Phase 4 project area and part of Phase 5 are all treated in the initial construction of those four stormwater facilities. The two areas in blue represent the Phase 3 project here. That would be, we're asking that the stormwater for that phase at the top of the project be constructed as part of that phase. And then the other blue area that I had on the screen is for the portions of Phase 5 that would be treated by a stormwater facility in this port area of the development here. So regarding the block geometry question, the rendering that I have on the board here, I believe is in your packet. The staff asked us to add some additional information about proposed pedestrian connections, sort of in support of our waiver request for the reduced block length. As we talked about a number of times, both at sketch plan and to the contract zone, the road layout that we've proposed as part of the plan that was reviewed at master plan earlier this summer and at sketch plan most recently in September was designed to follow the natural terrain of the site as much as possible. You can see that the roads generally sort of follow this sort of arc across the site, generally running from east to west through here. And that's trying to keep those roads and pavements sort of following the shape of the land and the contours, and avoiding where we can having to have excessively steep roads or roads that are not following the contours that require a lot of cut and fill. The site does have some rolling terrain. It has some steep areas and some ravines, and so we've designed the roadways to try to follow that terrain. In particular, one of the things that we're happy to have been able to do is that the project as it's proposed now has no wetland impacts. We've moved the roads. We talked about this at sketch plan and master plan. Compared to some earlier versions of the plan, this road B that runs across the site here was moved somewhat up the hill. That was in response to the mapping of some streams that run up in some of the gullies up in these areas to try to move that road and its construction as far as we could away from the head of those streams. The dead-end roadways as part of phase one extending here are following along the tops of some natural ridges, again, to minimize disturbance. And so the result of that is a plan that doesn't require any natural resource permitting beyond a permit by rule for disturbance within 75 feet of a couple of those streams for the construction of stormwater facilities, and particularly the stormwater facility here. We've used, where we're able to, some natural buffers for stormwater management. As you may know, the DEP has some stringent rules about what would qualify as a buffer, even though it's understood that any natural buffer provides some attenuation to stormwater. The DEP's requirements to actually claim credit for that are pretty stringent, and so really the only area that meets it because of the grades and the soil types that release where they're proposing this time is a buffer over this portion of the site to treat some of the runoff that comes off the lots. Most of the rest of the site is relatively steeper than the DEP usually relies on for stormwater treatment. So as part of the plan, you can see in your packet and in the lines here, we've sort of tried to highlight in brown where we expect to construct pedestrian connectivity through some of the open space areas. This was done intentionally to provide access to some of the conservation land, and specifically across two existing bridges that cross the Stroudwater River that were part of the former golf course. And then we've kind of strategically tried to locate connections through the site at a variety of areas here to provide some of that mid-block connectivity for pedestrians that the South Gorham Crossroads District looks for, while also trying to meet some of the other goals in terms of limiting our natural resources impact, limiting the amount of disturbance that we might have to make due to the grades and terrain of the site. And so we're hoping that the board will see fit to look at that plan. If additional connections are desired, we can certainly look at that. But we believe this meets the intent of the Crossroads District and is consistent with what we discussed in the contract zone in terms of allowing longer block lengths if they enhance the pedestrian, if pedestrian connectivity was maintained and the design was found to be responsive to the natural terrain. Final item regarding waivers are a couple geometric standards. The plan in blue, there were some comments from the peer review engineer related to identifying locations of where some of these waivers might be required. The town standards for the urban subcollector requires a minimum centerline radius of 230 feet, so the center line of the road, 230-foot radius. The project, if you look on the screen here, the road curves that are along Road B and along in the residential portion all meet that requirement. But there's also a standard that requires a tangent length or a straight line run of 200 feet between the beginning and start of those curves. So the areas that we marked in blue are a couple areas where we would need a waiver from the road standards if they're applicable in a private road setting. For the centerline curve radius, there is a tighter curve at the top in sort of the commercial developed, kind of intermingled with the parking lots up in the upper left-hand corner of the site on the screen. And the 5 areas in red are where we have less than 200 feet between a reverse curve. We think it's appropriate for those provisions. You know, one of the things we look at from a road or a low volume road like this is you want to try to minimize traffic speed. People will tend to drive on a road at the speed they're comfortable with, and there are a number of things that can help reduce that. One is curvature of the road. Roads moving around curves, as long as you have adequate sight distance, tends to slow people a bit. Straightaway sections with a wide road pavement tends to speed people up. And so we're hopeful that the board can find that the layout that we have here would meet the requirements for a waiver for those couple areas where we've reduced the length of the tangent between those curves. So I won't go through in detail. We did receive the staff comments and the peer review comments at the same time you did in your application. I can say we've reviewed all of those. I don't think there was anything in there that would substantively change where we are from a preliminary design standpoint in terms of the program or the overall layout. I'm happy to go through those comments in more detail. But in general, I just summarized on the screen here a couple that came to light that we thought was worth some discussion. There were comments and questions regarding trail locations. And so the staff did ask at our staff meeting a week or so ago that we prepare a separate plan that would show in more detail the specific trail locations where that connectivity occurs and identify in some detail where the open space amenities would occur. So that plan is in production. We didn't want to introduce it here without the staff having had a chance to review it, but that plan is being prepared and we'd be happy to submit that. We're hoping that that can be part of a final plan application. There are questions about parking for the open space. And as Nick has said at some previous meetings, the idea, at least initially, the existing parking around the clubhouse building would be available for public parking and access to the trails, while the project is under construction, and then eventually as that project's built out in future phases, the parking that would be available in the commercial area would all be suited for trailhead access or access to those trails. The open space parcels as they're defined right now are identified in the subdivision plan. As far as the traffic study, the comments from the traffic engineer were kind of expected, and we've actually started that study. We've taken, last summer, obtained traffic counts at the intersections that they've requested, and we're looking at the traffic volumes existing and with the proposed additions and evaluating those against the DOT's warrants for turn lanes and such for potential improvements. And so that traffic study is underway, and we'll be finishing that up and discussing with staff as it gets completed. As far as the other peer review comments, I'm happy to talk about any of those. I didn't see anything in there that wouldn't be part of the normal production of the plans towards final or any comments that came up that are particularly concerning to us. The comments they had are well taken, and we're working towards addressing those, and we'll get those back in as soon as we're able to complete that. And then the last item I just wanted to note that's noted in the application that I know the staff did discuss with the town attorney, just general conformance and with the contract zone, and it was the attorney's opinion that the plan as it stands now is in conformance with those provisions and can be reviewed. And so with that, I will pause and happy to take questions after your public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. This is a public hearing. So at this time, if there was anyone that would like to speak in favor of this project, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. I see no one rising. Ladies and gentlemen, if there was anyone that would speak against this project, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Again, I see no one rising. And ladies and gentlemen, if there was anyone that would like to speak about the project, neither for nor against, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Shortle. I live at 4 Malin Ave here in Gorham. The two things that stick out to me that I wanted to ask about, neither opposed or in favor of, but I just am hoping that are part of the discussion. With regard to, on page 22 of the handout that was issued here today, it talks about the Gorham Fairway South will not cause congestion or unsafe conditions with respect to the use of the highways or public roads. And I know that they talked a lot about some additional traffic studies that were going to be done for the both sides of McClellan Road, which I'm very happy to hear about because those two things are obviously a bit of a mess as it stands right now. But I didn't read anything in here or hear anything that was talked about today as far as McClellan Road itself. And the length of McClellan Road is currently very narrow, and the end of McClellan Road where Malin Ave and Beatrice Ave intersect with McClellan Road have effectively no shoulder, and most of the residents of the Malin Ave and Beatrice Ave neighborhood are folks that are on the older side, and they tend to use that as a walking loop, and the vast majority of them are walking basically in the road to get their daily exercise, to get out and enjoy the area that they live in, and adding a significant number of people and a significant amount of traffic that has to use McClellan Road to get anywhere is going to have a significant impact on the road quality itself. The shoulders are already starting to deteriorate, and there's really nowhere to put that much traffic on the road itself. And the folks that live in the area that use that road to get out and walk, and to walk their dogs and to walk their children would need some consideration when it comes to the physical structure of the road, trying to accommodate the addition of that many cars. So I don't know if that's part of this plan as well, but I wanted to at least bring that up so it can be part of the discussion. Number two that I wanted to talk about is the third issue on page 22 that talks about will not place an unreasonable burden on adequate roads, fire, police protection, school facilities, transportation, recreational facilities, and others. With a development that's looking to add 515 family dwellings, we can reasonably assume that that's going to be at least 1,000 people added to the population of the city. I work in a local municipality in public safety, and have done so for the last 2 decades. And my municipality is adding significant construction as well, primarily residential, and those additions add considerable and measurable burdens to the police department in terms of calls for service, the fire department in terms of calls for service, public works in terms of all of the things that they need to maintain with additional folks being added to the community. It says that the finding here that the Gorham Fairway South subdivision will not place any unreasonable burden on any of those things, and I'd be interested to know how that finding was made and how that determination was made. For a subdivision of this size, additional calls for service to police, fire, and EMS, are inevitable, and that's something that we do need to be considering and taking into consideration. So I'm not sure how that determination was made, but I'd like to at least have that be part of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, is there anyone else that would like to address being neutral? By all means, please. I'm sorry?
Pam Milliken Garza, 26 McClellan Road. I appreciate the prior speaker's comments and concerns because they're very real concerns. And yeah, traffic is just one of them. I'm a walker, and we can talk about design of roads to try to slow traffic down all you want, but you need to enforce speed limits. And I mean, it's 25 at one end of McClellan Road and 35 at the other right now. Cars don't respect that or observe that. So it is very hazardous out there right now to walk. So whatever needs to be done to do that. And I'm also just curious, and I realize the traffic study is probably a ways down the road, but it sounds like you're looking at just turning lanes at the end, both ends of McClellan Road, and I don't see how that's going to satisfy the impact of this additional amount of traffic. It seems like we're looking at traffic lights at the ends of those roads at some point. So just curious, and maybe that's premature, but I guess that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone else would like to speak being neutral about this project? Please rise to the podium, state your name and address for the record. I see no one rising. I will close the public hearing. Thank you, everyone. 28. Members of the planning board. Please, Colonel.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like the staff to address, because I know traffic is going to be a continued concern, and what the steps, because this is the preliminary plan approval, but can you just take us through the steps and how the traffic study and the impacts of it and what some of the outcomes could be before we go to final approval and the construction actually starts.
Yeah, so there's going to be a traffic study that's done by DOT. That's a whole separate study that's outside the planning board. Staff weighs in on it. There's also the preliminary review and requirements that the planning board does. So as the planning board reviews subdivision plans for all the findings that are identified in there, you should have some comfort level that you're moving this project forward. So regarding the traffic and some of these requirements that were identified, as part of your preliminary review, that's something the board can look at. Now, you don't need it 100% done, but you need to have the applicants address, if you have concerns regarding traffic or traffic calming, what concerns do you have, and then how do you have the applicants submit that as part of your review. Is that helpful?
No, yeah, so that is helpful. If you could just talk a little bit more about what happens after a traffic study is completed, Department of Transportation traffic study is completed, and what impacts that, what are the options that could result from it, and what are the things that would come back in front of the, or would be appropriate for the planning board to require of the applicant with respect to things like impacts to McClellan Road and widening, or the turning onto Brackett and South Street, those types of things.
Yeah, so the DOT has a more encompassing review of traffic and then how it's not only going to affect this site, how it's going to affect the two intersections, but depending on the traffic demand model that's coming out of the proposal, it can go out to Saco Street, it can go down to South Street and County Road. It will be a lot more comprehensive study, not only regarding traffic calming, speed, it's going to look at pedestrians, it's going to look at, DOT will look at everything. And they typically go a little bit further than a staff review or a traffic study that we typically see. Usually we're looking at the road immediately in front of the site and then maybe the intersections closest to it. Typically we don't go that much further than that, but the DOT will have a more encompassing approach. And then as the DOT rolls out their approval, there's typically performance guarantees and things that the state does that's different than the town, but there will be some kind of melding of the two plans.
And so they would have requirements that would have to be met prior to construction.
Typically, I guess sometimes it won't be prior to construction. Probably as there will be different thresholds, typically with the traffic movement permit. So as they develop phases, there may be different requirements to be completed at certain times.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Mr. Walsh?
So I'll just piggyback on the traffic questions. So as I understand, the main DOT traffic study would not be needed until they hit phase 3, is that correct?
Yeah, so our understanding is it's 100 trips in the peak hour. That's when it trips typically a site location, a traffic movement permit. There is certain criteria under how many lots a subdivision will have will also trip a traffic movement permit. So I'll look to Mr. Riley to just confirm which one is being tripped here.
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to all of it. I appreciate the comments too about McClellan Road and the concern there that hadn't been raised before. So we're happy to look at that in terms of in the direction you discussed that hadn't been raised before in our reviews with the staff yet. So we'll be happy to look at that with. So the way this project lands, Tom's correct that under the state rules, when a project reaches 100 trips in the peak hour, it triggers review by DOT for a traffic movement permit. And when you determine that, you take the project that you're proposing and you estimate trip generations. You also deduct from that any existing development trips from the site that have existed in the past 10 years. And so in this case, the golf course was in operation in 10 years, so there's sort of a credit back for the existing trips that the golf course was generating before it closed. So the way it works out with the development program as it's proposed is the first two phases of the project that we're going to be coming back to you for final approval on don't meet the threshold that would require a DOT permit review. As soon as phase 3 comes forward for approval, then the DOT review kicks in. And so part of the reason why it's phased that way is DOT permits have a lifespan. Once you receive your permit, you have 5 years to begin the project for anything that's covered under that permit, and you have to have it completed within 7 years. And if you don't meet those thresholds, you have to re-permit it again. And so because this is a phased project and because of the timeline, the first 2 phases of the project are the phases that are most likely to be constructed in that 5-year window. Phase 3 would come outside of that 5-year window most likely, and so that's why the permitting is phased that way. So when you have a project like this that doesn't yet meet the threshold for a DOT permit, the town has traffic standards that need to be applied. So the way we've typically done this with projects in the past is part of a sketch plan or part of a preliminary plan application. In this case, we prepare a memorandum that outlines the trip generation and basic information about what our project is proposing. The staff and the peer review engineer identify areas of concern related to that, and they have identified the intersection of McClellan Road at Brackett and the intersection of McClellan Road at South Street as areas that need attention. As I said, we have collected traffic counts at those intersections last year. We are looking at those to determine whether warrants are met for turning lanes or traffic signals. I didn't mention traffic signals because our first look at this is that probably those intersections with the existing traffic that there's today and the proposed traffic from phases 1 and 2 probably would not meet the warrants that DOT considers to say when a traffic light is appropriate. And the way DOT looks at that is there's some formulas based on it, but it's based on the traffic on the cross street. So in this case, it's the existing traffic on South Street and Brackett Road and the traffic on the side street. And there's a number of different criteria that go into it, but it generally, you have to have enough traffic to generate a sufficiently deficient level of service in terms of time delay over a certain number of hours throughout the day. And oftentimes that's a difficult threshold to meet. DOT preference is to not put in more traffic signals than they require, so they have some fairly stringent standards in terms of when a traffic signal is warranted. So our initial evaluation is that in the first 2 phases of this project, a turn lane could be warranted, either on McClellan Road turning onto those streets or potentially on those streets turning onto McClellan because of the time and the delay that goes into that. So all of that would be incorporated in the traffic study that we'll be doing for the first 2 phases of the project that will be reviewed by the town and the town's peer review engineer. When phase 3 comes forward, then an application goes into DOT. And how far they look out from a project can vary, depending on whether you reach, now you've reached 100 trips in the peak hour. If you are between 100 and 200 trips, you have to look at certain intersections in proximity to your project site, generally the closest abutting intersections. When you get over 200 trips, then the intersections that you look at spread further, and it's all based on how the trips get spread out through the network. So we would certainly expect when the project comes forward with a phase that gets to that 200 trip threshold, we'll be looking much further than these intersections. And at those phases, particularly when you get across the street down the road, a traffic signal may be warranted. And that's going to be a combination of what this project develops and how traffic develops over that time frame in the general area. So that's generally how it works. I did want to note, I didn't say in my presentation during our staff meeting, the staff did raise asking us to look at, which we are going to be doing in that traffic study, in addition to the intersections at either end of McClellan Road, just also doing some evaluation now as to whether a future turn lane might be required in McClellan Road to access the project at one point or another. Certainly for the first 2 phases, that's not going to be tripped. We wouldn't expect, but in some of those later, so we'll be looking at that as well to at least make sure we've reserved space both obviously the space is available in the right of way, but space on our site to affect those kinds of improvements, should they be warranted, when those phases of the project that would trigger them and require them come into play. Regarding the other question, so I think hopefully I addressed the question on traffic lights. Again, we'll certainly, as part of the traffic study that we're undertaking, look at the warrants that would say whether a traffic light would be warranted this time or not under the state's rules, and we'll be doing that as part of that traffic study. So that's with the traffic. I don't know if there's questions you want me to clarify that further.
If I can. Yeah, thank you for that very, very comprehensive answer. That helps. So I was not aware of the sunsetting of the permit. Yep. Because it seems to me every conversation we're going to have on this project moving forward is going to be traffic, traffic, traffic. And, the more that can be done up front to be transparent to the residents in the area, to help them through this, is going to be just benefit everyone. I mean, you just think about if you were a resident, you live off McClellan Road, there's multiple, you're talking, a decade or more of potential development and construction. It's going to affect housing costs. It's going to affect the value of the land. And anything you can do in terms of enhancing that traffic movement early on, if that is something that can be done at either end of McClellan early on, and it sounds like that would come through in the final approval, not in preliminary, but in final, we would be talking about that. Is that, Chuck, you're saying yes?
Yes.
Okay. That's going to be high on my list.
Sure.
We're going to be talking about it every time. So please put that right near the top. It's got to be.
Yeah, I think when we do the evaluation that's been requested, that a number of those questions will come to light at that time.
Okay.
So fortunately, the benefit is that generally speaking, if a turn lane is warranted and is constructed earlier, that really I wouldn't expect that the road geometry would have to change much when a signal is warranted because the lanes and the width would be there. It would be a matter of installing the signal equipment and crosswalks and things like that. So, but that'll come to light as part of the study that we're working with the peer review engineer.
Okay. Would you like me? Go ahead.
Thank you. So traffic is the hot topic. I'm just curious, do you know when the traffic study was done? And the reason I'm going to talk about this is because I live off Brackett, and when school is in session, there is 3 to 4 times the amount of traffic as any other normal day. If school is on vacation, there's no traffic, relatively speaking. It's all relative. But, so my point is, I'm just curious when that study may have been done, had it been done when school is in session, if you know.
I don't know. I know it was done during the count window that DOT requires, because DOT wants you to count traffic in the summertime, because that's generally when, in Maine, most of the peak traffic occurs. But I'll find out. I know it was done this year. I can't remember whether it was done before the end of June or in May or June. I'll take a look at that, though.
I appreciate that. And MDOT, great for them. But I mean, in this neighborhood, in this area, we're not having tourists coming through our area. I look to my neighbors in front of me. But I do know when school is in session, if you're not on Brackett by 7:15, you'll be there for a while.
And we can account for some projections of what additional traffic might be at different times of the year.
Sure.
Oftentimes, when studies are not done within the DOT's window, there are some ways that you typically multiply those or increase those to take account for things like other seasonal type changes. And then there's also, as part of that study, there is a sort of an annual increase in traffic that's sort of general to the vicinity in the area that gets accounted for in those studies.
Thank you for that. Members of the board, please, Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, I'd like to actually talk about something other than traffic for a moment.
Okay.
So this is more just a higher level question. why are you submitting preliminary for phases 1 through 5, considering how long it's going to take to build out that? And that, as I understand, the preliminary approval is only good for a certain amount of time before you have to come back for final. So why such a big bite right now?
Mostly because of the DEP permitting and the time that it takes for DEP to review a project under site law. They can take 6 or 9 months, and sometimes it's been longer. And so that's the main reason. And the main reason within that has to do with the stormwater management. Because as we've talked about, the first phase of the project, or phase 1 and 2, what we're going to be seeking final approval for, in order to meet the stormwater treatment requirements, we need to build some of the stormwater that's at the downstream end that is ultimately going to receive runoff from some of those future phases. And so in order to design it appropriately, we have to make estimates of what the runoff from those sites are going to be. And then also, because we do have some disturbance within the natural resource setbacks, we have to justify those disturbances. And part of that justification is that we are designing stormwater for a larger area that's ultimately going to be developed. But that's the primary reason, is that we want the DEP permitting to cover all of it, because we don't have the same sunsetting that we do with traffic permits. And because of the location, just because of the terrain of this site, where the large majority of that stormwater infrastructure wants to be constructed at the lower end of the site. It incorporates the whole, takes drainage from multiple phases, and we want to have that all known up front. So when we come back when we have final approval for these first 2 phases and come back with additional phases down the road, we know that the stormwater management is in place, and that those state permits that take a very long time for review are complete. The state permits, oftentimes, we do it this way. We make some reasonable assumptions, as we are now, about what the development of some of those future phases would be. We account for changes that may occur over time, for small changes that would change the layout or increase impervious area. We make sure we have enough volume and the facilities are designed appropriately for that. So we want to do all of that planning up front, and because we're doing all that planning up front, we're trying to secure the DEP permits for that. So our number of returns, if any, back to DEP are minimized.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. Another question, and this is maybe for this side of the dais. When looking at the project, since we're for the South Gorham Crossroads, whatever we call this area, there needs to be mixed use, including commercial. That doesn't kick in till phase 3, as I understand. Phase 1 and 2 are entirely residential, single-family homes and condo. So when you look at, I guess I have to ask a question. What if phase 3 is never built?
So one is, I guess, a question for land use, or are you talking about growth permits and a waiver for growth permits?
Yeah, kind of like in general, because I'm just saying, okay, this thing is a big project. I think when we first saw it, it had commercial right in the early phase when it was on the north side. Mm-hmm. And now we don't see commercial till phase 3, and there's not supposed to be just residential in this area. What happens if phase 3 never occurs and we just have a residential area in an area that's not supposed to be, other than the contract zone allows it?
Correct. So I think the whole mixed use and discussing the mixed use and having commercial on the parcel was start early on with the developer and staff to talk through an exemption regarding growth permits. Under land use, we propose to have that mixed use district to give developers the ability to do residential commercial. It's not just a specific requirement, though, typically, right? We're giving flexibility for these kind of developments like this one, like the Downs, so we can have commercial and residential together.
Right, but you're saying it doesn't have to have commercial?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting.
I thought it did. Okay.
Again, it was the growth permits. So that was the discussion. Early on, when the developer first came forward, it was all residential.
Which would have been limiting. Members of the board?
Chair, is there appetite to address some of the waivers?
Absolutely.
So there's a list of them actually on page 17, at the bottom. The first one is a waiver to request to allow stormwater facilities to be constructed in phases.
Just a helpful point here, on page 3, they're also listed with language, if you'd like to use it. So they're listed in 2 places. They're part of the findings of fact, and they're also included here under the
Thank you.
items of note.
The same order?
I believe so. They're all certainly there.
Okay. So page 3 then, stormwater facilities constructed in phases. The reasoning seems to make sense to me.
I'd defer to Mr. Norton.
Yeah, if we could have Mr. Riley, I know you spoke a little bit about the stormwater in subsequent phases. I would also like to hear an explanation of putting in that those stormwater systems without them being active and the duration of the project, how that might be detrimental to the project itself. So.
Oh, if we were to construct them ahead of time? Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So what's contemplated as part of the stormwater facilities for those future phases that are shown on the plan here and here, they're underground chamber systems of one design or another. Sometimes it's a metal pipe, sometimes it's a plastic chamber with stone around it. When you put those in, there are restrictions on loads that you can apply over the top of them. So the vendors that we work with as we do our designs to size them, we also get designs from the vendor with some specific criteria that they require that limits things like construction loads over the top of them, so during construction. And so oftentimes, and most times, when a subsurface stormwater facility is constructed on a site, it's generally done as one of the later portions of the site work because they don't want to risk damage to it for things like, not that we would have cranes here, but crane loads, truck loads, heavy loads. So they generally prep the site, get the building foundations constructed, get the vertical construction underway, and then complete the rest of the site work and try to keep those areas untouched by things like deliveries and construction traffic. So putting them in place today without the development that goes around them and the construction that goes around them would require some extraordinary measures probably to protect them over time. Additional fill, things like that would have to be built and then removed again. Also, just leaving things dormant where they aren't being used and inspected can lead to maintenance problems occur over time, whether a system is used or not. So you may have ongoing maintenance that would occur for a system that's not even active yet. And then, again, as part of the town's ordinance, we do need to come back for final site plan review when the buildings are defined for those phases, when all of the parking is defined. There's possibilities that over time, as that gets developed, that something might need to shift or move somewhat. And having those structures in place obviously make that more difficult. So it gives the board some more flexibility when the final site plan review comes to those phases to be able to, and us flexibility to address comments or concerns related to that. So in general, that's what the reasons are. The project can meet all of the state level requirements for stormwater treatment without those, as long as the areas draining to them haven't been developed yet. So there's no environmental or regulatory reason that they would have to be constructed other than the language in this zoning ordinance says they have to be built as part of a first phase. And so, like I said, the stormwater that is being constructed as part of this initial approval, I don't know what the percentage of it is, but it probably covers, I'd say, on order 80% of all the entire development that's going to occur. The systems that you see on the plan here are generally proportionate to the size that they will eventually be. That's an accurate design of what's in or accurate representation of what's in the preliminary plans now. So you can see just from a space requirement, they're much smaller than the other facilities that were being constructed. And so we're hoping that the board can find it reasonable that those be constructed as part of the phase when they're required to provide treatment.
And that makes sense to the staff?
Yes. Yep. Thank you very much, Mr. Riley.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please, Colonel.
Move to grant a waiver to Triano Properties LLC from the requirement of 300-1.139A 2C to allow stormwater facilities to be constructed in phases at tax maps 7, lots 6, 7, and 8.
Colonel, is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I'm looking to Mr. Norton. You're okay with this? I hear about road loadings and crane moving and bulldozers and everything else, and, you know, I had a project recently that we had similar issues, but are these made of concrete? Are we worrying about caving them in with extreme load, because there's going to be loads eventually over the roads?
No, they're designed for what we have proposed right now are corrugated metal pipes. They're designed for H20 traffic loading with pavement over the top of them. What I was getting at was what the manufacturers require. They're designed to meet their ultimate purpose and the loads that would be imposed on them. What they're concerned about are extraordinary loads that could be applied during construction when the appropriate cover is maybe not in place. So it's not a matter of them not working as they're intended. It's just that interim condition on an active construction site. Things get damaged when they're not.
Understood. Thank you. You're okay with that? Okay, we had a motion and a second. Any other concerns? Any questions? All those in favor on this waiver? Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
You got that? One minute, please. You all set with that one? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Colonel.
The second consideration is a waiver of the Class A high-intensity soil survey. And the applicant reviewed why they're requesting the waiver. But again, I look to the staff to get the staff's take on this.
The planning board typically waives high-intensity soil service when net residential is not required and public sewer is provided.
Sure. We've had that in many other projects, yes, yes. Something you're going to read for us?
Chair, I move to grant a waiver to Triano Properties LLC from the requirements of 300-30.1.11.k to conduct a Class A high-intensity soil survey and instead conduct a Class B survey at tax map 7, lots 6, 7, and 8.
Thank you, Colonel. Is there a second, please?
Dave
Thank
Walsh,
you, Mr.
second.
Delaney. Sorry, Mr. Walsh, he beat you to it. Any other questions? All those concerned, we've been through this with other projects. I think it's straightforward. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Colonel, you're on a roll.
Yeah,
Would you
Mr.
like to
Chair.
continue? Thank you.
The third issue is to waive the requirement for off-site pedestrian connection and allow payment of in lieu fee. Of course, we're not talking about internal pedestrian. We're talking about sidewalks and access. It's all external, which we know doesn't exist currently on McClellan. So,
I do have one question on this. So would this will there be a sidewalk along McClellan for the area of the development?
We're currently not proposing a sidewalk on McClellan Road at this time. We would expect that, sidewalks on McClellan might be appropriate when the rest of the development, say across the street, comes forward. As it stands today, there's no destination for, outside of development within the project frontage. There's no destination for people to access that. We've provided all sidewalks on all of the internal roads and the internal trail connections, trying to meet some of the goals of the South Gorham district to make those a neighborhood walkable and interconnected within. So right now we do not propose sidewalks on McClellan Road.
I would be in favor of seeing sidewalks a development of this magnitude, I think it would enhance it. I think it would look better. And I think, we have to start somewhere putting sidewalks in when we're putting in a large development. Eventually, it's going to connect to something. So,
So maybe I can clarify. My understanding of the requirement for that waiver is for connections to other off-site sidewalks beyond the limit. So yes, your point's taken from a site subdivision review standpoint.
Yeah.
From the waiver standpoint, I think that only applies to, and I may be misunderstanding that would only apply to making connections beyond the project frontage to some location where they may exist.
I believe Mr. Riley's correct. It's
Miles
for
away.
off-site to make a connection from this sidewalk to South Street
and
or
I
Weeks Road.
I fully understand that.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, because I didn't see sidewalks on here, I'm just saying, my opinion, I would love to see sidewalks along McClellan for the site.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at that and also in conjunction with the request in the traffic study to look at potential turning lanes or movements, because that should all be sort of looked at together.
Yeah, okay.
My editorial response is, I am against in lieu of fees. However, I know there is no sidewalks anywhere around there now, and I think this is a very vague description to say off-site connections. I don't know where there will be sidewalks anywhere on McClellan, other than perhaps within the confines of the projects on both sides of the street, et cetera, et cetera. So I will vote to approve this waiver, although I don't normally, I want sidewalks built, but there's nothing to connect it to.
Mr. Chair.
Go, Mr. Colonel.
I move to
Colonel,
grant a
Colonel, thank
waiver
you.
to Triana Properties LLC from 300-1.139.f and 300-1.149 to waive the requirement for an off-site pedestrian connections and allow payment of an in lieu fee at tax map 7, lot 6, 7, and 8.
Thank you, Colonel. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Crisafulli. I'm sorry. Thank you.
The next, I'm sorry, we got to vote.
You-
Let's go. Sorry.
I don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to laugh. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Colonel, you're on a roll.
The next issue is maximum block perimeter standards in accordance with the Gorham Fairways contract zone. Again, I think this is an issue we've talked about on other projects and at length with this one. To me, it makes sense, and I appreciate the showing the pedestrian connections. I think that goes a long way to meeting the intent of the block standards.
Something you want to read?
I didn't want to know if anybody else had anything to say.
I don't think anyone wants to steal your thunder.
Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver to Triana Properties LLC from the requirements of 300-1.193.1 of the maximum block perimeter standards of section 301.139 or 1391 at tax map 7, lot 6, 7, and 8.
Colonel, is there a second?
Mr. Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. I appreciate that. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the last consideration for waiver refers to geometric standards of Table 1 street classification design standards, minimum distance between reverse curves and the minimum center line radius. And again, for me, anyway, I would like to hear from the staff on this issue.
Thank you very much. So one item that I believe was mentioned in the presentation, but it's not on here, was the reduction of the esplanade for the typical section. So may want to add that in as a discussion point. That's the grassed area between the curb and whatever sidewalks built on site. They're proposing to reduce it to 0, correct?
Right.
Okay. So that's, I think that's in general acceptable. We've done that ourselves throughout town as far as a maintenance reduction. Oftentimes, those esplanades are hard to maintain, especially in the wintertime. You're piling snow on top of them, and it kills everything in the grass esplanade, and it just becomes a maintenance headache. From the town's perspective, we've done it ourselves, so it's certainly something that can be done.
Is there some graphic you could pull up to maybe clarify that for us?
I got it on the screen here. So what you see on the screen here, the roadway that's proposed is based off the town's urban sub-collector street cross-section. We've maintained the 24-foot wide pavement from that standard, curbed on both sides of the road, and on the left-hand side of the section, we're just proposing an attached sidewalk, so a sidewalk abutting the sidewalk. All the rest of the geometry right-of-way standards are consistent with what that road standard would be if we were proposing it as a town-accepted road.
And again, this being neighborhood streets, low speed, urbanized setting, it's not really necessary as far as safety is concerned to have that buffer between traffic and your pedestrians walking. So that's the thoughts on that. Should keep going with the others, or do you guys want to discuss that? Yeah, keep going. The other two were minimum distance between reverse curves and the minimum center line radius. Kind of the same discussion for both. We're looking at low speed, local roads. Distance between curves, as Mr. Riley had stated, is more of a driver comfort item. You don't necessarily want to enter into opposing geometric curves on a road at higher speeds, but reducing that tangent length makes it a little bit less comfortable to go through those curves fast. And again, these being local, low-speed streets, I don't think there's much concern with the reduction of the tangent between those curves. And then the two locations where the minimum radius was reduced, again, low-speed roads, I don't necessarily see it being much of an issue. I would request or ask that we request to see some turning movements, some auto turn movements throughout the site with some prospective vehicles, since we have both residential and some commercial capacity. So whether or not the design vehicles, semi-truck or just a box truck moving through, making sure that those reduced curves don't have vehicle tracking into opposing lanes. So that's really all I'd want to see with those. I would ask the applicant that one connection on the western portion, Road D, Station 400 to 400 plus 85, that seems to be more of a teed up kind of connection point there. Was there a reason for not going with just a stop sign, a stop controlled intersection?
Oh, we can certainly put a stop sign there. It just happens that to get to take the road, to get it sort of in alignment with it, there's a short little curve, very short segment of curve that's less than 230 feet.
Oh,
right.
So is it really, yeah, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So again, I've seen this in practice. We're coming up to what might be a stop control location, and in that case, the center line radius is moot. So
Yep.
I don't think that one's an issue. But yeah, as long as the applicant's fine with showing some auto turn movements through the site, I don't think that would be much of an issue.
Yeah, there'll be a stop sign there at that spot for sure.
Yeah.
Would you mind bringing up that drawing again, please, with the, so this sketch is not what is shown right here for the roadways?
I don't believe this has been submitted at this time, is that correct?
This was just in response to the comments that we got on Thursday to asking for some clarification of where these things occurred.
I think it's the same underlying geometry.
Oh, yeah, the plan.
They've just highlighted the locations.
Yeah, we just showed it on a cleaner drawing to make it a little more visible than what this would show. But that all of that is the current design that you have in front of you.
Did it go way too fast?
No, I'm looking at something different. Has fire been able to review the road curves?
I'm not sure. Have they made a comment on it?
So the fire department got the submission, as they typically do. and their comments would have been in the packet, so
I don't
Nope.
know if we had a
No comment.
submission from them.
Yeah, we're happy to provide the turning movements. I don't have any concern with the vehicles being able to make the turns there. We'll provide that information, though.
We will get comments from fire for the next submission.
And please make sure the entire board gets it. I don't want to be the only one. Thank you.
Certainly.
we've had a conversation with the fire chief.
I'm good with my comments, thank you. So there was a motion by Colonel Benson?
There's not been a motion yet.
No? I was going to add some language to that.
I think there was some discussion. I did mention that the motion language was missing the esplanade reduction. So if there was a motion and you wanted to add that in.
I apologize. So what words would you like Mr. Colonel Benson to, if you have something?
Well, so I guess the question for the board is, do you want to see the fire chief's comments in the auto turns before granting the waiver?
Yes. I mean, we're looking at perhaps, a rumor is new fire apparatus. I don't know, the length, size, width, all of that. So, me personally, that's my opinion.
Is there any benefit to splitting this up? Because there's not going to be an issue with the distance between tangent curves, because those are
Yeah.
design
And
curves.
Those are short. Yeah.
I would just note too that and I'm happy to split it up. There's no issue with that. One thing to keep in mind when we do the turning movements, if there is a different fire apparatus, those two locations are essentially, the turning movement is the same as any like 90-degree intersection in the road with normal road pavements. And so if any new fire apparatus can't make a turn between two 24-foot wide rows at 90 degrees here, they can't make that turn anywhere. So I'm pretty comfortable that they'll be able to make the turn through
You're
there.
building to public road standards.
The width of the
Right.
pavement, yes.
Good information.
I'm good. I'm good.
Good good information. That's good information to have.
From the fire chief?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Mr. Walsh, did you agree with that?
No, I'm saying I'm good to.
Okay,
Okay, as is.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
You're okay as is? Looks like we might be in the minority.
Well, we'll see, we'll put it to a vote and we'll see.
All righty.
Just one point of order for you. Did you want to include the language discussed by the town engineer about allowing attached sidewalks?
That was the reduction of the esplanade.
Yeah, so what's the language that needs to be added?
I think you can add that to the end of the motion if you'd like, to allow attached sidewalks, and we can look up the reference.
So it just says
For the findings of
just to allow attached sidewalks?
Correct.
Yes.
There's no reference to esplanades that needs to be mentioned?
They're synonymous, in my opinion.
Yeah, we will add the ordinance section in the findings of fact. I think that's sufficient to record. If you make the motion as such, then we can add the actual reference, as long as we understand your motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver to Toronto Properties LLC from the requirements of 300-1.139, the geometric standards of Table 1 street classification design standards for the minimum distance between reverse curves and the minimum center line radius at tax map 7, lots 6, 7, and 8, and to allow attached sidewalks that the staff will amend.
Is that enough?
That's agreeable.
Thank you, Colonel. Is there a second?
Dave Walsh, second.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. So there was a little bit of an amendment, a little addition there. Any other discussion, questions, comments? All those in favor? 5. I'm opposed because I would like to see Fire Chief's input firsthand. I would hate to have all this effort done and then say, oops, let's go backwards. So that would be 5 to 1, please. Thank you. Anyone else? There are 37 pages of comments, questions, suggestions, ideas.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Walsh?
I do have a question, kind of more procedural. This is a huge, huge project. 5 phases in one approval is just, I just, feel like I'm biting trying to swallow a whale. And I'm looking down the road at some of these, we're seeing, we have apartments and we have buildings that we have no idea what they're going to look like, which will bring me a question. Do you have any elevations? Do you have any facades? Do you have anything for us to see to visualize this? But then what is the threshold that we need to achieve for preliminary approval?
So I typically recommend the board that these plans are 80% done. So that means you have 80% comfort level because final subdivision is 20%. So because a lot of the cost that the applicant is now going to move forward, like if you gave preliminary approval, he's gone till final. That means he's developing plans for the off-sites, everything. And when it comes back, it is going to be ready for final. So if there are comments that the board has that wants to direct the applicant regarding review of any offsites, you want to have that information in hand and starting to be reviewed before you give preliminary, so you have an understanding of the direction. Because once this approval is granted, staff and the applicant are going to go move forward thinking the planning board's okay with whatever's being proposed. So if you have concerns and you want to do a site walk and you want a little bit more information of what's happening regarding either offsite or onsite, now's the time to get that information, because when he leaves here and he starts going to DEP approval, that's when the cost for design is going to be incurred by them. And when they come back, they're going to assume the planning board's okay with it. So that's my recommendation to the planning board. I know it's a big project and it's a lot going on here, so I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
That's a great piece of information. Thank you, because and I'll just say this, I'm not 80%, anywhere near 80%. So
my question would be though, I mean, because his question was specifically about renderings of the build,
that was just one example. That was just
all of those things. To me, and typically in other projects, we haven't looked at those things for during preliminary approval. We've looked at those before final approval. So I feel like we're moving the goalpost here a little bit. I understand the site, all the prep stuff and the water and all of that work that needs to be done, and why they want to get started on preliminary approval. But when you're talking about a rendering of a building, to me, that's not something that is necessarily needed unless they were looking to build something that we're not used to seeing in the town of Gorham.
So what I will say regarding building rendering, so this is one of those rare occasions where we're getting site plan and subdivision merged together, right? Typically, building renderings on a subdivision, the planning board doesn't get, because it's a subdivision. It's a single-family house. You don't typically get renderings. This is a site plan and subdivision merged together. Site plans, we always get renderings, right? If you get a commercial building, you're going to get a rendering of the building. So this is a little bit different. So
in the preliminary?
No, so that's the question for the board is you can identify for the applicant what the majority of the board wants to see. So you can do it at preliminary or you could do it at final. I think that's a board discussion about when you want this information to be had.
We did see renderings on the project across the street because we allowed 2 textures as opposed to 3. And those properties, I understand.
If it was during the preliminary or the final or.
No, but in general terms, in other projects, I look at the yellow, all right? And so I'm starting on page 22, and I'm going all the way through, and there is significant yellow that planning department has highlighted that should be addressed or will be addressed or et cetera, et cetera. The big thing for me this evening is a site walk. I know the area, but I have not gone down towards the river. I've only gone along the McClellan Road. So a site walk to me would be nice, that's my opinion, and I know we want to get there before the snowshoes, if it's the pleasure of the board. I'd like to hear from anyone else, please.
I agree on sidewalk, sooner the better.
Seeing some nods. Would the board like me to reach out to schedule that? I can.
Is there consensus?
together a
Would we, as a board, like to have a site walk?
Yes. Yes.
Send a dual poll to the board and the applicants, and we'll aim for probably the third week of November before Thanksgiving. Not the week of Thanksgiving, but the week before.
So here's my opinion, it's going to be in the morning.
It would have to, I was going to ask, unless say a 3 p.m. time worked for the board, I think it would probably be 8 a.m. in the morning, okay?
Well,
Or 7:30.
yeah, I say that just
I can
because of
flip both
daylight now.
times. Yes. We don't want to do this at night, so.
There'll be deer running around, I hope.
I could throw a few days, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we can see what works.
Are people available mornings? I mean, we can't do it after 3 o'clock.
I'll figure it out.
Something to consider. We've had only a few members at other site walks, so whoever's available would be ideal. So if you please schedule that.
If you did in the morning, you have a good sense of traffic driving by there at the same time.
That's a good point. So, okay, look out for an email from me to schedule that. And regarding the yellow too, just a note for the board's comfort level, what we typically would see is the peer review engineer would review, and we'd look for a response to comment memo in the next submission. So to complete the cycle and show that things are being addressed, that would be something we lay out for the board to help show that it's getting closer to that threshold, where if your comfort level is not there at this point, that's how we can help get you there.
Sure, yeah, I have some, I'm curious. There is significant yellow as compared to previous submissions. I'd like to hear from anyone else, please.
Well, I have looked through, and I've circled a lot of things here. I'm still unsure of which ones need to be checked off at preliminary versus final. We've talked about a few, but, I come back to there's, I guess I'm on page 32, talk about street facades. And then there was some other in there about parking between the buildings that didn't meet the performance standards or the standard for the South Gorham Crossroads, where there was parking between buildings. That's not until phase 3, but do we talk about that now, or is that you wait till final?
Yeah, I can sort of help explain that a little bit. So basically, the standards call for no parking to be located between the buildings and the streets, and there are streets identified here, and there's no actual parking between the buildings and the streets, but there are some access drives that do have parking between the building and the access drive. So that's where it may be a little bit of a gray area in the ordinance, and I look to Tom here too to sort of see what his opinion on that may be. But if you look to the site map, I believe it's more. I'll look at Mr. Hager's. In phase 5A and B especially, I think there's some of that. Well, that's in particular where I was looking, where it's kind of like a big parking lot / access drive. So that's where I thought the board may want to, and Carol weighed in on this as well, and she said the board should weigh in on whether or not that does constitute a parking between the buildings and the quote street.
Which one specifically were you saying, Damon?
5A and 5B, which are,
Mr. Walsh?
Mr. Riley's pointing at them.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
so
it. Yep.
where I think that applicants would, it would be useful for them to know the board's comfort level with that.
I guess I don't see the big picture, which I normally do. 24-unit apartment building, a lot of vehicles, I would expect. Perhaps, at least, what do we have, 1.5, is that our metric? I mean, I'm not going to say 2, but if it was 2, the apartments themselves, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and on this, for Phase 5A?
Let's take a look here.
Yeah, I think the question is, should it be flipped, right? Should the buildings be where the parking is and the parking be behind the building? That's really the discussion point, like,
We can speak to that in detail if you'd like us to go into that. There's a number of reasons why it was arranged the way it was.
And I think if the applicant provides that as the next submission, the board can definitely consider and staff can review the reasoning and see whether it meets the ordinance.
Yes, okay. For
It
next
really,
submission, that's fine.
the short answer is it has to do with the terrain. And if we put the buildings the way they are, you can take advantage of the falling terrain with some walkout access on the backside. If we flip it, it really makes that difficult. And that's the short answer as to why we looked at it both ways, a number of ways through the master planning and the sketch plan review. And it was done for that reason, and it was just done for visually, when you look at what the site might look like, if you were to look at a section through there, it helps the building sort of fall in with the terrain better than they would if they were flipped, is the short answer where it comes down to. And speaking, certainly the board, comfort level is all about it. I would note that much of the yellow that you're referring to are simply statements, and I think they're to call your attention to some things, but some of them are yellowed and they're just statements of fact that we are in fact not impacting natural resources and things like that. To Tom's point, what we seek preliminary approval for are the major components of the site, the things that we want to submit to DEP for. The road alignment, the general arrangement of the buildings, if the building changes shape or dimension or materials, doesn't affect those criteria. So the things that are relevant to the state's review are the reason we come forward for preliminary review. Again, we've read through all the comments that were provided from the staff. We don't see any those resulting in any substantive change. The arrangement of the buildings, there's plenty of room on the site if the buildings get a little longer, a little wider, deeper. We think we've made accommodations for that. And I'd also note that we are just seeking preliminary approval to try and make sure the board is comfortable with the layout and the arrangement of the roadways, the general layout of the pedestrian connectivity, so that we can go forward with confidence. I don't, if there's changes to building designs, facades, lighting, all of those things that typically come with a final plan application, I don't see any of that being difficult to meet what you're ultimately going to require. We were happy with the comments that came in because I think there was nothing in there that raised any alarms in our mind in terms of like major changes to this that might come up out of, that would cause an amendment to the DEP review. And so that's kind of where we're asking for that preliminary on.
Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, so we talked about parking lots. So what parking standard have you met, in terms of the number of parking spaces
Right.
for these buildings?
So on the screen, if you can call it up. So the summary that was on the drawings spells out what all the parking requirements are. And this was based on the parking requirements just before the town changed the requirements. I think we talked a little bit about this at sketch plan. So right now, the breakdown here is that we've provided we've assumed that from a parking standpoint, that all of the condos and apartments are going to be 2-bedroom units. Understanding that some of them are likely to be 1, some maybe a few, maybe 3, but they're going to be 2, 1, and studio bedrooms. but we've accounted for them all being 2 bedrooms at 1.5 spaces per unit. And so right now, you see there are 1,065 parking spaces provided on the site. When we looked at that, based on the latest revision to the parking standards, we're overparked by maybe about 100 parking spaces. We can certainly, as part of the final plan review, eliminate some of those where they make sense. But understanding, like, we don't know exactly what the commercial use might be in some of those mixed-use buildings. It's going to be one of the allowed uses that are in the zoning ordinance. But we've retained that parking. But there is an opportunity at final where we could shave some parking spaces off of it. But we're meeting the standard. We're maybe 10% over at this point, based on the latest parking demand, the latest parking regulations that just got approved this summer, July or August.
Yeah. Okay, good. Another question, if you just kind of run down, what's your timeline you're thinking for these phases?
For construction of them?
Yes.
Do you want to try and take that? Yeah, I'll take that.
So our plan right now is to be doing the water sewer next summer. If everything goes through with the preliminary, tonight, if we can submit DEP Friday, that gives us 6 to 9 months to be able to start the water sewer next summer, with a path forward to be able to start the on-site work next July is the plan right now. July would be the start of the first phase of house lots. The first phase is 25. Second phase is another 25, third phase is another 25. So be mindful, that's 3 years of work. So we're here tonight looking for preliminary for phases 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but we're only going for final for 1 and 2. So the only thing that we could really submit a elevation for phases 1 and 2 would be the 12-unit buildings, because the house lots are getting built, and there's really it's more of a code issue than it would be a planning issue for house lots. But that would be the plan. So it's about a 3-year phase build out on the house lots as of right now.
So on phase 1, are you building the homes, or are you selling the lots to be built by the owner?
It's up in the air right now. Okay. So 26, 27 is going to be the first 25. 27, 28 would be the second 25, and it'd be probably 28, 29 would be the third.
Okay. And then phase 2, the condos?
Mm-hmm. That would probably be somewhere in the second 25 being built or the third 25 being built. If the economy is not demandful enough for it, it could be right at the tail end of that. It's all market dependent, right?
Okay. So you're talking 4 to 5 years out on
yeah, and I think that's a big thing, right? So, I think everything tonight kind of pushed traffic, pedestrian connectivity. A lot of the reasons we don't have sidewalks on McClellan Road is due to town staff, right? So McClellan Road's a ditch line road, so there's no stormwater on the street. The stormwater is the ditch line.
Yeah.
So in order to have sidewalks, it'd have to be in the street right away. The problem is, if we're going to expand the street, phases 3, 4, and 5, it doesn't make any sense to put a sidewalk right on the ditch line, because then we're ripping the sidewalk out. But if we put the sidewalk in our property right away, we're not developing that side of the street right away. So, because it would have to go on the north side of the street. So we're kind of putting the cart before the horse in some context, and I think that's a lot of the reason. The other issue is the town didn't want to assume the sidewalks because they don't have any snow operations in that side of town for sidewalk operations. So we're trying to keep it on our property to obtain most of the liability for ourselves, which is good for the town. You guys don't have to pay for it.
Right.
But at the same point in time, we have to have the land disturbed to be able to do all that stuff. So that's a big thing as well.
All right. Well, thank you for the explanation on that.
Yeah.
Good evening, thank you. I'm curious about this water thing. There's some talk previously that perhaps you might pick it up at Newton Drive and continue on. We haven't heard anything on that other project. So are you planning on coming from Wyman's no matter what?
Yeah, we're designing the water to run from this site to Brackett Road, all the way to where it connects to the water districts, the end of their main. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the road. It's past Newton Drive, Brook Edge?
No, it's
Blackbrook subdivision.
Blackbrook subdivision. It's
so where the water district's 12-inch main ends today, we're submitting plans this week to the district to run from this project site to that location.
Okay.
if the Newton Drive project came forward and wanted to connect into that main after Triano has built it, they would have to pay a connection fee to the district that the district manages, and then the developer who put the main in can recoup some of their costs for that 10-year period. But we are not assuming another project is going to build anything. We are putting plans together to build the whole thing.
Well, thank you for that. That's quite ambitious. I've been going back and forth. We've been hearing about it all this time. Neighbors are curious, et cetera, et cetera. So I wish you the best of luck with that. Anyone else? Here's my 2 cents. I'm going to speak out of turn, and Colonel, give me a whack in the head if you want. I would like to have a site walk. I would like to have them come back in December with things buttoned up. That's cutting to the chase. A little ambitious?
Well, we can address.
To me, I would be in favor of taking this to a vote tonight, because to me, a lot of this yellow is, we addressed it with some of the waivers that were granted. The DEP stormwater permit, which is something they have to apply for, accounts for a lot of this, which won't be done before preliminary approval. Stormwater, which again, we talked about phasing. So to me, there's a lot that's in here. There's several comments about sewage and water access, which we already know that the plan is for them to use public sewer and water. So again, I think a lot of these issues have been addressed. And I do definitely want a sidewalk. Like, I'm not discounting that, but I would be in favor of taking this to preliminary approval tonight. But
thank you, Colonel.
My thoughts.
I'd like to hear from others. I can be swayed, trust me. Mr. Walsh.
I initially, when I started reviewing this, I was like, holy moly, this is a lot. How the heck are we going to approve this? And I'm still having a hard time with it, because listen to Tom says get to 80%. What you guys are asking for is quite practical, but I think it's more like 60%. And I understand everything you're trying to do, and you've done a ton of work. You laid it out well. It's easy to understand, and some excellent answers and descriptions tonight, Dan. You really helped me. So I still don't think I'm at 80%, but I think Bill has brought forth a good point. When I look at what's in yellow, because I circled a lot of it, and is that it's lesser, more stuff. I tell you, the one thing I'm having a harder time with is, this is the biggest project. Is this the biggest project that's been brought forth in Gorham?
For a while, I mean, Roby subdivision was.
Yeah.
But this
This
was
actually
just the
is
first
bigger.
phase, a little bit bigger. This
Yeah,
phase is definitely bigger.
It just seems to me like we haven't heard a whole lot from the public. And I was really hoping to hear more, just so we could incorporate some of that into what our discussion and what we're asking of you, or what you're hearing from the public. I'm disappointed we didn't have more tonight. I do appreciate the input that we did get. But I think that I'm feeling like I'd like to hear more from the public, but honestly, I don't know what more we can ask them to bring back in a month that's not here. So I guess roundabout, I'm saying, reluctantly, I'd say I'm not at 80%, but I guess I'd vote for preliminary based on what needs to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Anyone else?
I'm in agreement with proceeding with the vote tonight.
Mr. Crisafulli, Mr. Frank?
I'm with the Colonel. Yes, there's a lot of yellow, as you are fond of pointing out, but a lot of it is procedural type stuff, not show-stopping stuff.
I think to his point, several of these waivers kind of whitewashed that yellow. So I'm comfortable with that. The site walk is not going to change anything. It's just to give us a flavor of, wow, this is quite a slope. You know, a lot of stuff's going downhill towards the river. You want to say something?
Yeah, I would. So I think, you know, the big concern for us is timeline, right? It's always been timeline. And in order for us to be able to run this water sewer next summer, which is really for us to be able to do road work, next summer's it, right? That's what it comes down to for state work and stuff, because Brackett Road does fall under state to a degree. So for like surface and base pavements and stuff. So a big thing for us ends up becoming the timeline, right? So if we don't have full, you know, transparency on this with you guys tonight, and I think we can all agree that the master plan's pretty well suited. I think we've all got that vote. We've come back for sketch plan review. We've gotten that. I think the big thing is we really need by Friday to submit the preliminary and our application to DEP. So if we push this back, the site walk back 2 weeks, we lose the submittal of the month for the December hearing with you folks to come back. So where that puts us is more like January, which we lose 2 months. So, which pushes the whole water sewer back to 27. So I think what we're asking for is that approval tonight, not because we think we deserve it by any means, but just because we think that we display everything that we've kind of come forth for in the first 2 meetings and probably the last 7 or 8 meetings in the contract zone and everything else. I still would love nothing less than for everyone to come out for a site walk. I think it translates the property and it really speaks for itself. But I think it keeps us more on target time-wise, and I don't think a site walk is going to change anything on this plan, which is going to cost us, like I said, 2 months and probably a year worth of work that we're trying to avoid losing.
Sure, understood. And let's be clear, this isn't anywhere near 80%. 60% might be generous, but I hear you loud and clear.
Great.
Colonel? You're
Mr. Chair, I move to grant Toronto Properties LLC request for preliminary subdivision approval for a 545-unit mixed-use development project located on map 7, lot 6.7 and 8 on McClellan Drive in South Gorham Crossroads zoning district based on the findings of fact as written by the town planner.
Any other conditions from Mr. Norton or anyone else? Esplanade, all that stuff, those were all in the waiver. We're all set. All right, there's a motion. Mr. Frank?
Mr. Frank makes an observation.
Please.
In the motion, it says 545 units. I believe that should be 515.
That's correct. 515 is correct.
515.
If that's a typo, we'll make that correction.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to shove that over to you, but you were fast.
Mr. Frank, were you seconding his?
No? I shall, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Frank, for doing that. Okay, I'm all on board with this. Site walk is going to happen no matter what. We're going to be voting on this. Motion by Colonel, second by Mr. Frank. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, back to our regular program. We're now on item 5. Discussion. Zoning map amendment. A request to amend zoning map and create new zoning districts for the Little Falls Village area to coincide with Little Falls South Wyndham Master Plan. Would someone from planning like to kick this off, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this item's on for discussion. So the council, the town council of Gorham and Wyndham went through a joint village master plan process for the villages of South Wyndham and the Gorham Little Falls Village. As part of that village master plan process, there was kind of an identification of looking at needing to update that village's core districts as well as some accessory districts that support that village district. We went through a process and hired North Star Planning as well as Aceto Landscape Architects to do that study. The councils, both in Wyndham and Gorham, then hired North Star Planning to draft new districts for that area as well as propose zoning map that would go with those districts. This is a large review or large ordinance amendment. We recommend that this go to one of the planning board's subcommittees to just proof it and take a look at all the new language. It's going to be a change. It's going to be more changing that Little Falls district into a mixed-use district, kind of like Gorham Village Centers. And I guess with that, I'd answer any questions you have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Poirier. Yes, I was going through it and just curious. We talk about soft lighting, et cetera. It's in setbacks and et cetera, story height, et cetera. Yes, Colonel?
Well, based on the number of people in the audience, I see how much interest there is.
It's only discussion, so they're going home. Monday Night Football. Mr. Walsh, did you have a?
You know what, I guess I have a question, for Tom. So North Star Planning did this, North Star was involved with the Economic Development Strategic Plan. Little Falls was one of the concentration areas, well, whatever the term that was used in that thing. Is there a mesh between that plan and this?
A little bit. I think that was all taken into consideration as part of both of those studies going on, so yes.
Okay. And I just did have one question. I know this has to go to committee. When I see something in here, it says that all properties that abut the Presumpscot River shall provide a 25-foot easement along the river to the town. How the heck do you do that?
It would only happen if they come in for site plan review as part of a development review process.
Okay.
Like if it's a single family home, we would never get it, but if it's coming in for development or redevelopment, then you would look to get that easement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, if I was a member of the public, not that many of them might ever read this, but if they ever did, I'd say, whoa, that would open someone's eyes if you own property there. So.
Mr. Frank?
Yeah, for Tom, of course. On page 3, excuse me, it talks about the active business on the first floor and residential behind or above with no parking on the first floor. What is no parking on the first floor? To me, that would be a ground
very
level
top,
garage.
very first sentence, mixed-use development. Does that mean no parking for the residential portion? Because the business may need parking.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to talk to North Star exactly what that means. It confuses me too. I'm not.
I know this is a work in progress, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to highlight some of the things that I found puzzling.
I would say I'd be in favor of taking this to a full board workshop.
But that's where I was going to head too. Yeah.
That would be my.
Yeah. But it'd be
preference.
nice to have our.
Oh, they should be there.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
we'll invite North Star for sure. They'll be
Yeah,
part of it.
Okay.
And the one other thing, I guess, because I don't know if there is a Superfund site not far away from this location. And so I don't know if there's any consideration as we're discussing this, or if there needs to be. I don't know if that's general knowledge. It's on the Wyndham side, but it's right here.
Yeah.
So I would like at least some discussion about that impact to this site when we have a workshop.
We have heard from Wyndham, and I believe the APA is starting the cleanup. We heard within a year. That's what Wyndham has relayed to us. So they're talking, what Mr. Benz is talking about is the Ketty Mill site on the Wyndham side. So it's an old commercial development that it needs to be removed from the site and taken to a landfill. and
Cold rolled
remedy.
shafting.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. I don't want to steal your thunder, but on page 17, we have a few motions. Mr. Frank?
Move to send the proposed amendment to create a Little Falls Village Center District to the full board for workshop review and recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Frank, and we would like to include North Star in that in that meeting. Is there a second, please? Thank you, Mr. Delaney. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. And last but not least, we'll still be under the gun. We have in your packet review of the draft for the 2026 Planning Board meeting schedule. I think Damon helped put this thing together. I suggested that we might say, for example, in April is when we have election of officers, or when people are appointed or reappointed, hopefully, to the planning board.
That's what the asterisks for.
Yep, and just sort of explain to the board, yep, I took all of Jim's suggestions and put them in, and I reviewed the dates against major religious government holidays and other dates of significance. Just wanted to see if there are any issues with any of these dates, particularly the planning board, or if if you want to make any adjustments to it, and we can go from there.
I'm good as it is. We're always throwing out sidewalk potential. In the future, might we consider the optional date to be the sidewalk, but it's daylight dependent, I guess.
Yes, that's something I think Carol has suggested as well at times, so we can look to try to do that.
Schedule it as we need to, of course.
Yep.
You want us to vote on this? Do we want to wait? Do we want any other month? We don't have to do it tonight, unless you want us to.
It's useful to have it set so people can start planning.
Did you guys vote in the past? Usually we just look for if you're all set with it. I don't think it needs a formal vote.
It's up to the board. Yeah.
Consensus?
It's fine.
Yep.
Without objection.
How's that? Good enough, Tom? Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Is there any other business to come before us? I hate to say, we're going to call it an evening. Is there a motion, please?
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Delaney, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Colonel.
What took you so long?
Don't leave me hanging.
All those in favor? Thank you. Good evening. Thank you to Georgia. Thank you. Thank you to the planning department. Thank you, Mr. Norton, for showing up. Let's get